Oh, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the best counters to the best 10 brawlers in the game right now. So I know you're probably like me, right? You're kind of sick and tired of the broken brawlers in this meta. Well, hopefully some of this video will help you in countering them and trying to defeat them. But sometimes it's a little bit impossible because there's 3 of them that are really strong. Spoiler alert, but you probably know already. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We're absolutely killing it with a brand new update. Again, I am on vacation still, but once we return, we'll be smashing the content out every single day for you guys. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So we're going to be starting off with probably the best brawler in the game in Lily. So Lily is in a 1v1 just insane because she can deal like 6.3k damage with a damage star power, and there's not much you can do with the gadget. So pretty much the only way to counter her is try and wait and try and expect her in terms of her positioning, just like Leon. Just expect her to be in weird positions with a gadget and always try and keep track of her when she appears in a bush, etc, etc. But in terms of gameplay, Frank is a great counter. I know he's meta, but he's a great counter because he has a lot of HP and Lily just can't really kill her Frank. And you can also time your super well, so when she appears out of the gadget, you can stun her and kill her and take her down. Next, Meg. So Meg's really good because a lot of HP, not back star power. It's really hard for Lily to push into a Meg. And then you got the likes of Hank's actually a good counter to Lily because he's very tanky. That's probably the best thing, best way to counter Lily. You want a lot of HP because Lily will just unload so much damage so quickly to the squishy brawlers, they can't even respond. So Hank's good, and then you've got the super as well that can just destroy Lily and at least keep him topped up with more HP, and you've got a tanky gadget. So Hank actually is a really good counter. And then you've got the likes of 8-bit because 8-bit's tanky, and then also you want to group up when you're against Lily because then you can get the trade or at least make it so multiple people are shooting and taking her down. So 8-bit's good for those camping compositions. And then you've got the likes of Artie in a 1v1 with a gadget can instantly delete Lily. And then you've got Chester because Chester always has a lot of damage in him, especially with just his bell cycle. So next up, we're going to be looking at the best ways to counter Frank, and I apologize again for not having like the correct gameplay showing every single interaction, but it's hard. With 81 brawlers in the game, it's hard to get the exact combination. But there's one brawler in particular that you guys should know about by now, and it is Colette. Colette is just easily the best Frank counter. Of course, having so much HP, Colette is feasting on that. That's why she's S tier, just literally countering one of the best brawlers in the game. And then you've got Primo. Primo's really good against Frank because you can interrupt the super and attack with Primo's super with his gadget as well, and you can just keep cycling. But I still feel like Frank's actually okay against Primo, so it's not as hard as a counter as before because once you're close to defeating Frank, he can just shred you. So yeah, it's pretty hard to defeat him. And next up, we got Lou. So Lou's really good because the way you counter Frank is just to try and keep out of his distance, which is pretty hard. But Lou allows that with the freezing, he allows it with the super cycling. The hypothermia can help with the insane damage potential. You think a power grab, for example, Lou can nerf that to literally half with near enough him fully frozen. So I really love Lou against Frank. And then we've got Shelly and Bull. So Bull is a decent counter if you can get close to Frank, but still, I just don't think it's the greatest counter in this meta. And then Shelly's just good because you can open up the map and just farm supers. But I really only think Lou and Colette are the best counters. So next up, we're going to be looking at the best ways to counter Draco. So Draco can get countered by tanks, for example. That's probably the best way because he doesn't have like infinite damage. He can't just burst through tanks quickly. So I think Draco's been suffering a little bit more in terms of the ladder meta because there's just tanks everywhere. So, you know, Frank can be a good counter and just Buzz. I see a lot of Buzz. They switch star power to the extra stun so they can cancel Draco a lot easier. And if you time it correctly, you can stop Draco from entering dragon form. So Buzz is an insane counter in competitive play. In terms of other counters, I think Cordelius is a good soft counter because again, if you time it right, you can interrupt the super. But not only that, you can waste a lot of Draco's super duration just by putting him into the Shadow Realm and then running away. And then that's just really annoying as a Draco player. I know that myself because I've used Draco in this meta. Next up, we've got Colette. Again, high HP. Colette can push Draco away. You've got the gadget to heal up as well. Colette is an insane counter. And then I did say just any type of stun mechanic. I think that's really underrated because, again, there's nothing more annoying when you're trying to cycle through your supers with Draco and someone interrupts you and wastes your super. That's the best way to counter Draco, is by wasting his super. Next, we're going to be taking a look at the best ways to counter Berry. And I think it's a lot easier than other meta brawlers in the game right now. So the best way by far, especially once I was pushing Barry, is obviously other meta brawlers just completely dominate him, so that's stopping him from being broken. But just any form of tank, because of course he has very limited burst potential. His damage is just a puddle, so if you can avoid that, and not only that, you know, just one tick of it, it doesn't stack as well. So you kind of think of how Willow got countered when she was released, because her damage wasn't like instant. It's the same counters to Barry, and of course he's super squishy, so tanks should be able to feast on him. Sometimes you can dash away with Barry gadget, but eventually tanks are going to overwhelm him. Next up we have a Melody. So I found Melody's a great counter because any type of like mobility is really good, because you can move out the way of the puddles, you can just close the gap onto Barry, and that's what you want. You want to get close to him to try and take him down. So Melody and Max are really good for that reason. So now we're going to be looking at the best counters to tank counters like Colette and Gale, who have just been dominating in the meta. So of course the meta is always like rock paper scissors. You've got tank counters, you've got tanks, and then you've got like snipers that suffer versus the assassins and the tanks. So of course you want to use those snipers. So for example, like Belle and Piper is always the best way to counter, because you just keep the distance. Colette just can't out damage in a 1v1. You know, with Colette's damage, it's just tiny into a low HP brawler. So of course you want to use something like that. Your typical lanes as well are going to be pretty good against these brawlers. And then of course throwers, because there's nothing a tank a tank counter can do to close the gap. You know, what is Colette and Gale really going to do against a thrower? Nothing, except for try and waste their time. Next up, we're going to be looking at the best ways to counter Melody. So she's just been rampant in the meta for a long time, so you should know how to counter her by now, and she's a little bit more manageable with the HP nerf, but there's a few brawlers in particular. So Cordelius, I love running into Melody, because once you put Melody in the Shadow Realm, it removes all of her notes. So of course she has no DPS, and then just in a Shadow Realm she has no super, and her main attack deals no damage. So you can just run into Melody so quickly and kill her every single time. And next up we've got Charlie. So I know people will say, well, the notes still go around in a cocoon when you super her, but still it's a great shutdown. You know, if Melody's about to rush in, well, you can just say Uno reverse card, put her into the cocoon, and there's nothing that she can do. And then once she's out of it, you should be able to take her down quickly, because you can coordinate and pinch really easily. And then lastly we have tanks, because we all know Melody isn't the best damage dealer. She's good at just mobility, getting around the map, and finding her best matchups. But then into tanks, there's not a lot she can do. She can farm super, she can farm super and notes, but in terms of pure 1v1, she can't do much. Now we're looking at the best ways to counter Meg, and boy is she just dominating the meta right now. But she like serves a different purpose in the meta right now. But the best way to always counter Meg is by big damage dealers. So for example, you know, Colette is a great counter to Meg because she has 8,000 HP. So a couple of shots can make her weak. Super just kill her. But we'll say Meg, you know, if Colette doesn't have a well-timed gadget or good super, Meg can still destroy Colette pretty easily with the damage. But then my favorite one is definitely Lou, because you should be able to somewhat outrange Meg, feed a lot of supers because she's got a bigger hitbox and she's just beefy, and then you can just stun lock her and cycle through to your next one. Next counter that I love is Lola. So she used to be a better counter last season. I still feel like she's a decent counter because of course you've got her super that can just deal double the damage, well, near enough double the damage. You get what I mean? You could just shred through. You've got longer range than Meg, and you've got a decent amount of HP, so you should be able to win that battle. And then lastly, Gale. Main reason Gale can pretty much outrange a Meg. You can farm a lot of supers, you can stun Meg, and all of that good stuff. So in that 1v1, Gale is pretty good. So now we're moving into ways to counter Kit. So we should be pretty familiar with how to counter Kit, because Kit was like the best brawler in the game when Kit was released. But there's a few ways in particular. You've got a play style. So for example, if it's knockout or just any game mode, you want to abuse the early game. So making sure you're pushing up the map whilst Kit is charging that super, because Kit's vulnerable without super. So especially a knockout, you want to win that first knockout round whilst Kit doesn't have super. Pinch, push up the map, and get Kit down as quickly as possible. It's the best way to win against Kit. Next we have Cordelius and Charlie. So again, rewind back to the Kit meta. These were two brawlers that you could only use against Kit to counter, because for example, Cordelius with his super, it detaches both the tank or just wherever Kit's jumped on, and then Kit's just there, vulnerable in the middle, and your teammates should be able to take down the Kit if timed correctly. Charlie as well, the same. you just cocoon the tank or whoever Kit's attached to, and then Kit's vulnerable without being attached or without super. Next up we have RT as well, so of course in duels, in showdown, RT just deletes Kit in a 1v1. So now we're going to be moving into the best ways to counter Angelo. So Angelo's been a top brawler for a long time now. You guys should be familiar with the best counters, but I'll rerun it for you guys if you're unaware. So the first one is Max. So Max is really good because you've got a gadget to tank one of the big shots from Angelo, and now I feel like Angelo is definitely more vulnerable to just type of aggro play because it takes 3 shots to cycle to super. So any type of aggression, stopping Angelo from cycling, healing up effectively, Max is the queen at that. Next up we've got Draco. So Draco's a good counter to Angelo. Main reason being is because you can apply a lot of pressure, and that's what I love doing with Draco. So Draco compositions, Angelo just hates facing off against because it's just so cheesy. And then lastly I went with throwers. So I know like Poco composition and tanks are pretty good against Angelo, but they're not really seen that much on good Angelo maps. So I think throwers are a great counter to Angelo because you can, he's squishy. You can just stay behind a wall and just annoy him. Moving into the final brawler we're looking to counter, it is Byron. So as we always know, the best way to counter him is to get close, try and take him down, especially if there's some cheese going on. A lot of times you can't actually deal with the Draco and the Kit running at you. You've got to go with the Byron who's in the pocket and take him down. So it's pretty hard if he has the booster shot and then he has the super to defend himself, but Piper should be able to beat him in a 1v1. You've got the gadget to confirm a kill, you outrange Byron, and you've got a hypercharge as well. It should be pretty free in a 1v1. Next up we've got Buzz. So Buzz is just a great counter because you got the stun, and in 1v1 you just shred Byron so quickly. Again, you just kind of need this assassin to get directly on top of him because Byron can still deal somewhat with tanks because he actually deals a lot of damage. And then lastly we have Miko. So again, you need that assassin, you need the likes of Edgar, Mortis, Miko, the ones that can get on top of him quickly and take him down effectively. And of course Miko can just jump over Byron shots and whatever else. So that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I hope this video helps you out in terms of figuring out the best brawlers to counter the meta, because the meta is wild right now. So I feel like this video is probably more important than ever before on the channel. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.